from Group 3. And for today's video, we are going to talk about the history of backstroke, butterfly swimming, so as their nature. So sit back, relax, and learn with us. The history of backstroke swimming. Backstroke swimming developed as an offshoot of front crawl, with swimmers copying the overarm technique on their backs. One of the most important developments in the history of backstroke was made in the late 1930s when Australian swimmers began to bend their arms for the underwater phase of the stroke. This new technique was faster than using the traditional straight arm to pull through the water and was quickly adopted as a standard style for competitive backstroke swimming. Another watershed moment in the history of backstroke swimming came at the 1988 Olympic Games in Seoul. USA's David Burkhoff qualified for the Games using a backstroke start known as the Burkhoff Blast-Off, where he would use a dolphin kick underwater as long as possible, swimming faster than on the surface of the water. The 100-meter backstroke final in Seoul saw the three medalists, Japan's Daiichi Suzuki, USA's David Burkhoff, and USSR's Igor Polyansky, all swim between 30 meters and 35 meters of their first length underwater with a dolphin kick. World governing body FINA reacted by restricting the distance a swimmer could remain submerged at the start of each length, initially to 10 meters, then in 1991 to 15 meters. However, a year later, FINA changed the restrictions on backstroke turns, allowing swimmers to touch the wall using any part of their body rather than only their hands. Although for finishes, backstrokes still need to touch with their hand. It quickly became commonplace for backstroke swimmers to flip onto their front as they approach the wall, spin quickly underwater, and touch the wall with their feet, kicking off for their next leg.
We've all heard about backstroke, but let's learn a little more about it. So good day everyone, I am Catherine Mauro and let's continue to discover the history of backstroke swimming. The backstroke was the second style of swimming after the front crawl in competitions. The first backstroke competition in the Olympics was held in 1900 in Paris for the 200-meter men's race. In terms of organized competition, the backstroke has been around from virtually the beginning of the modern Olympic movement, with a 200-yard back event held at the St. Louis Olympics in 1900. One of the early changes occurred in 1932, when Australian amateur swimmers discovered that bending the arms in the underwater stroke proved to be faster than straight arms. This has been adopted by all swimmers up to this point. A 100-meter swimming competition was the first women's backstroke swimming event to be held at the Olympics in 1924. The 200-meter women's event was added to the schedule for the 1968 Olympic Games in Mexico City. On the international level, the United States has completely dominated the backstroke competitions, with the men sweeping the 100 and 200 meters events at the last Olympics. So here are some of the best backstrokers of all times. So first is David Burkhoff and Daiichi Suzuki. The pair introduced underwater dolphin kicking to the masses. Second is Ryan Murphy, the current backstroke king. He won both backstroke events at the 2016 Rio Olympics, carrying on the American tradition of backstroke dominance. Next is Aaron Pearsall. As a 17-year-old, Pearsall placed second at the 2000 Sydney Olympics in the 200-meter backstroke. Sure, the stroke appears simple, but it comes with its own set of complications, such as wrongly set up backstroke flags and attempting to pass other swimmers. So now, let's move on to the nature of backstroke swimming.
The nature of the backstroke uses alternating and opposite arm movements. As one arm pulls through the water from an overhead position to the hip, the other arm recovers above from the water to the hip to the overhead position and vice versa. The leg performs a flutter kick similar to the one used in the front crawl. The backstroke, as the name suggests, is the only one of the 4 competitive swimming strokes swum on the back.
Nature of backstroke swimming. Backstroke encompasses different movements such as body movements, arm movements, and leg movements. In the body movements, the backstroke is swum in a horizontal position on the back. However, the body rolls a little from side to side following the arm movements. While the body rolls from side to side, the head remains in a neutral position face up. Ideally, it should be possible to swim backstroke with a small bottle on your forehead without it falling off.
Arm movement. In the backstroke, the arms perform alternating and opposite movements. So one arm pulls backward in the water from an extended forward position to the outside the shoulder and then to the hip, performing an S-shaped movement and providing propulsion, while the other arm recovers above water, moving from the hip to the extended forward position in the water, performing a semicircular movement, while the arm is kept straight during the recovery. The arms then alternate their movements, and so on. Per swimming stroke cycle, each arm pulls once in the water and recovers once above the water.
In the leg movement, the backstroke uses a flutter kick. The legs perform alternating and opposite movements. While one leg moves up, the other leg moves down, and vice versa. The legs are moved up and down in quick succession with compact movements. The feet are stretched while the hips and knees bend slightly.
The history of butterfly swimming. In 1930s, the history of butterfly stroke started when it developed as a style of swimming breaststroke. Swimmers and coaches began to realize that breaststrokes was quicker when a swimmer recovered their arms forward above the water, and arm technique as well as the swimming term butterfly was born. In 1933, American Henry Myers is said to be the first person to have used butterfly arms for a full length of breaststroke, unveiling it to the confusion of officials and competitors in a 150-yard medley race.
In 1935, American swimming coach David Armbruster is credited with developing the recognizable butterfly dolphin kick to accompany the overarm recovery in one of his swimmers, Jack Siege, using it to devastating effect. In 1952, while the dolphin kick was against world governing body fitness breaststroke rules, the butterfly arm technique continued to be used in breaststroke races until butterfly was established as an individual stroke by FINA.
Hello guys, I am John Kaiser Aulinuay. So for today, we are going to talk about the nature of the butterfly stroke together with my partner, Mr. CJ Ragandang. So let's start with what is butterfly stroke. The butterfly stroke originated from the separation of the traditional breaststroke with the butterfly breaststroke, where the arms return through the air. It is known as the fastest swimming stroke after the crawl. This technique is usually taught last during swimming training because of its demanding nature. Indeed, it requires excellent fitness, relaxation, and perfect coordination. Breathing is also very important whether from the front or side. In any case, it has to be stable. So let's move to how to swim the butterfly stroke. As odd as it may seem, the butterfly stroke is similar to the swimming of dolphins because the legs perform undulating movements. as opposed to the scissor movements of the crawl. So undulation guys, or undulating movements guys, is the action of going up and down smoothly. So for beginners, the most common difficulty is in returning the arms forward through the air. This requires coordination between the return of the arms and the second undulation of the legs. And the legs themselves must be held together during the entire stroke. They must undulate, extending the movement of the upper body.
The upper body is also very much in demand, starting with the arms. Indeed, it is essential since it is the arms that exert the traction and thrust which propels the body forward. Finally, breathing is the most important point. It can be done with each arm movement for distance or with every 2 or 3 strikes of the arms for speed, which requires even more relaxation and coordination. The hardest part for the beginner is to perform correct undulation in order to balance arm movements with breathing.